Dear students, welcome back to this e-Shikshana program. In today's class, with respect to your module 4, the classification process, we will deal with the topic called as model evaluation. And we also know that a model is nothing but the abstract representation of the given system. And here we are speaking about the classification model. Which classifier model that I have designed is the best one I am supposed to evaluate it. So before going into the details of the classifier comparison, we'll take a small example wherein a particular franchise is supposed to select a player based on his performance in the Indian Premier League, IPL, as well as the international list of players available. I'll take certain attributes such as number of matches played by the player, number of runs scored by him, number of wickets taken. So if you see the statistics, right, I have given some numerical values wherein player 1 has played 30 matches, player 2 similarly has played 25, but the number of runs scored by player 1 is 1700, whereas by player 2 it is 1440, and even the number of wickets taken here is greater for player 1 when compared to player 2. So if I ask you a question as a team management or a franchise, whether should I select player 1 or player 2, you'll obviously recommend player 1. Why? Because the number of runs scored and wickets taken per match, if I consider, you'll obviously say player 1 of the IPL background should be selected in comparison to player 2. So based on number of matches, runs and wickets, obviously player 1 is best suitable when compared to player 2. Now if you ask me, I would rather choose player 2 rather than player 1. So obvious question, you'll ask, sir, why? Because the player 2, the number of matches that he has played is 25. They are all at international level, and the runs scored also are against international teams, and the wickets taken also are with respect to international teams or international players. But if you take IPL, right, there are 30 matches played, 1700 runs scored, 65 wickets taken. This 65 wickets is not of all international players. It might have some domestic players also. The runs scored might be against the bowlers who are of domestic teams but not international players. So even though the number of runs scored and wickets taken are more for player 1 of IPL background, I would choose a player from international background because he will have more experience. So the same concept we'll try to apply to compare the classifiers. This is just a background example form, fine, so don't take it exactly the same way. We'll apply the same characteristics for evaluating the classifiers. Now say for example, I have a pair of classification models, model A and model B, which I represented as MA and MB. I am using the notations MA and MB for the classifier models A and B. Now suppose that model A achieves 85% accuracy and model B achieves 75% accuracy, and model A has achieved this 85% accuracy for 30 records, model B has achieved for it 5000 records. So just like the previous example, if I ask you to select which model will you select against M and A and B, you will obviously recommend 85 model A with 85% because model B has only 75%, but this 85% accuracy has been achieved for 30 records, but whereas model B has achieved 75%, 10% less in comparison to model A, but this has been achieved for 5000 records. That means the number of records is more in case of model B when compared to model A. So obviously I'll choose model B rather than model A. Just because model A has 85% accuracy when compared to 75, I'll not choose model A. Or as simple as, fine, selecting a topper from a batch of 10 or selecting a topper from a batch of 100, the number is more, fine. So the confidence, I can say yes, out of 100 students, this fellow is the topper. I'll have the confidence that he is the best person. So similarly, if the number of records are more and then the accuracy is more, I'll say this model is better. So how to mathematically evaluate, we'll see in the upcoming slides. So the preceding examples wherein model A having 85% accuracy for 30 records and model B having 75% accuracy for 5000 records raises two key questions regarding the statistical significance of the performance metrics. We have discussed about statistical significance with respect to your interestingness measure. If the statistical interestingness measure is equal to 1, they are statistically independent. If it is greater than 1, they are positively correlated. Less than 1, they are negatively correlated. Similarly, for my classification models or my classifier also, I am supposed to evaluate. That I will evaluate using statistical significance of the performance metrics. So that is the description given here. Even though model A has higher accuracy than MB 85 greater than 75, it was tested on a smaller test set because model A is using 30 samples, model B is using 5000 samples. How much confidence can we place on the accuracy of model A? Just because, as I said, just because model A has 85% accuracy in comparison to 75, I will not choose. I'll get the confidence on model A or B if it has been tested for more number of samples or instances in the given data set. The second question, is it possible to explain the difference in accuracy as a result of variation in the composition of test set? Now we'll go back to the same example. Model A has achieved 85% accuracy, model B has achieved 75% accuracy. Now if the number of records, it is 30 for model A, 30 for model B also. In the first instance, 85 and 75 was the accuracy, number of records was 30 and 50, sorry 5000. In the second instance, if model A has 85% accuracy, model B has 75% accuracy, but both the models have been evaluated for only 30 records. In that case, which model will you select? Obviously model A. But the number of records I am talking is 30, but the number of instances in both the data sets are same. That's a question mark. That's what I am speaking about. Is it possible to explain the difference in accuracy as a result of variations in the composition of test set? That means whether the number of instances considered for model A and model B is same. Of course, the number of records are, number of instances are same, 30 and 30, but the data set might be complex. Model A might be evaluated for complex data set, model B for a simpler data set. In that case, will I be able to differentiate the accuracy is the second question that I am supposed to answer. So how will we answer these things? We will see. The very first question relates to the issue of estimating the confidence interval of a given model accuracy. That means as a model developer, will I believe or rely on, or in the simple sense, confidence is reliability. Will I rely on model A or model B? That can be defined by estimating the confidence interval. We'll see how to find confidence interval by looking at the theoretical concepts as well as we'll solve a problem. The second question relates to the issue of testing the statistical significance of the observed deviation. That means whether there is a relation between accuracy and number of records, statistical significance. If yes, if the value is greater than 1, I'll say they are positively correlated, less than 1 negatively correlated, equal to 1 statistically independent. It is for the attribute value pairs. Now I am talking about models, so I need to test the statistical significance between the accuracy and the number of records that has been evaluated. Moving further, we will see how to estimate the confidence interval for the accuracy. We are trying to address the first issue by estimating the confidence interval. So the topic is estimating the confidence interval for accuracy. So in order to find the confidence interval for a given accuracy of a model, we are supposed to establish the probability distribution that governs the accuracy measure. And this probability distribution, hope you have studied in your basic mathematics. In one of the feature of your probability distribution, the variant will consider the binomial experiment wherein two possible cases of a given event will be considered. That is what I call it as probability distribution. And what is the chance that the given event will be true or the given event will be false is called as probability distribution. And since there are only two values possible, I call it as the binomial experiment, wherein the experiment consists of n independent trials. That means there are n number of instances, records, where each trial has two possible outcomes, that is success or failure. If I take students statistics, pass or fail, positive or negative with respect to whatever rate classification, fine. So the probability of success P in each trial is constant. So say for example, if I flip a coin, right, the probability that the event head will fall or head will occur or tail will occur is defined by success P, whereas the failure will be determined by 1 minus P. So moving further, an example of binomial experimenting is counting the number of heads that turn up when a coin is flipped n number of times. That means I am considering an event wherein I flip a coin and I'll see and I'll count how many times does head turn up when I flip it n number of times. So if x is the number of success observed in n number of trials, that means when I flip the coin n number of times, what is the probability that head will turn up will be denoted by x. Then the probability that x takes a particular value in a given binomial distribution with mean np. So the mean value is n multiplied by p, where n is number of trials, p is the probability that determines the value of x. How many times will head appear? If I flip it 20 times and head appears 15 times, so the probability will be 15 by 20, 3 by 4, 0.75. So variance will be defined by np into 1 minus b, because 1 minus p is the unsuccessful rate, number of times tail will turn up. I think we have defined this mean and variance in your data similarity and dissimilarity, so I'll not go into the details. Only with respect to the event of flipping a coin, mean value is equal to np and variance is equal to np into 1 minus p. So what is the binomial distribution? The probability that x is equal to v. V indicates the number of times the success value, number of times head turn-ups, that is what is v. N is again number of trials, p is the probability, v is again the value how many times it appears, 1 minus p we know, n minus v you know. So you need not worry about the derivation for binomial distribution with respect to the given event. You can directly note down this equation and we'll try to solve it. So I'll consider the same equation, and for example, if the coin is fair, that means if I flip the coin and head appears, fine. So the probability is 0.5. The probability that head will occur or tail will occur is equal to 0.5 and is flipped 50 times. That means the number of trials are 50. The value of n is 50. And the probability that the head shows up when I flip the coin 50 times, how many times will head turn up is 20. That is the value of v. So if I substitute the values of probability n and v into this equation, I'll get the probability of 0.00419. That means the probability that head will occur 20 times out of 50 trials is equal to 0.00419. And if this experiment is repeated many times, then the average number of heads expected to show up is 50 into 0.5. Why? Because I'm talking about average number of heads expected. That means I'm trying to find the mean value, and mean value is determined by np. N stands for number of trials, p stands for probability. Number of trials is 50 and the probability value of p is 0.5. So 50 into 0.5 is 25, while its variance is 50 cross 0.5 cross 0.5. That means variance is defined by np into 1 minus p. N value is 50, p value is 0.5, 1 minus 0.5 is 0.5. So 50 into 0.5 into 0.5, it will be equal to 12.5. So if I repeat these equations n number of times, the mean value of the probability that the head will occur out of 50 times is 25 for heads and 25 for tail similarly, and variance is 12.5. So moving further, we'll generalize the description for any given event. Given a test set that contains n instances, that means if I have a data set wherein there are n number of records, and let x be the number of instances correctly predicted by a model and p be the true accuracy of the model. And I repeat, x is the number of instances correctly predicted. What is correctly predicted? It is the true positive prediction. Before classification and after classification, the instance remains positive. That is what I call it as correctly predicted. You can calculate these values from your two-way contingency matrix or confusion matrix. And p be the true accuracy of the model. And how to find accuracy of a given model, we have discussed in the first class of classification, wherein true accuracy is the number of correct predictions divided by total number of predictions. What is the value of number of correct predictions? F11 plus F00 divided by F11 plus F10 plus F01 plus F00 will give me the true accuracy of a given model. So if the prediction task is modeled as binomial experiment, then mean value will be np, variance value will be np into 1 minus p, and accuracy value will be x divided by n. That is means x is total number of correct predictions, instances correctly predicted, true positive, divided by total number of n instances. So and these are the mean values and variance values. So the binomial distribution can be approximated by normal distribution when n is sufficiently large. That means the number of instances in a given record must be greater than 30. Then only I'll be able to apply binomial distribution, else I'll not be able to apply. So what is the alternative method available? We'll see in the later class. Based on the normal distribution, the confidence interval for accuracy can be derived as follows. Now the same sentences I have repeated here. So how can I define confidence interval for a given accuracy of a model? If you look at this diagram, there is a curve here wherein the shaded area is represented as 1 minus alpha, where 1 minus alpha is nothing but the confidence level. I repeat, 1 minus alpha is the confidence level. What is this confidence level? How can I trust, or how reliable is a given model accuracy when compared to the other model? That is what I call it as 1 minus alpha. Whereas z alpha by 2 or z 1 minus alpha by 2 is the lower bound as well as the upper bound for confidence interval. So understand the difference. 1 minus alpha is confidence level, z alpha by 2 and z, wherein z alpha in general indicates confidence interval. I repeat, please do not get confused. 1 minus alpha denotes confidence level, z alpha indicates confidence interval. So what is this confidence interval? As the name itself indicates, interval. This is the difference between your confidence levels from lower bound to upper bound. So 1 minus alpha is confidence level, this is the lower bound and this is the upper bound. So z alpha by 2 and z 1 minus alpha by 2 indicates the lower bound as well as the upper bound for confidence interval, starting from minimum value to maximum value. And if a data set consists of large test sets, that means if the new instances are greater than 30, then accuracy as a normal distribution with mean value of p and variance as p into 1 minus p divided by n is given as this formula. The probability that lies your accuracy value will lie between the lower interval bound as well as the upper interval bound, wherein 1 minus alpha, the confidence level, is defined as accuracy minus the probability of the given event divided by square root of p into 1 minus p divided by n. We know p is probability, n is total number of instances. This bound or the confidence interval difference between the lower bound and upper bound is 1 minus alpha, which I denote it as confidence level. And confidence interval, that means z alpha for any given event probability will be defined by this equation. So in this model classification and model comparison, you don't worry about the derivation of these formulas. The only thing that you are supposed to do is you are supposed to recall or remember these formulas. You need not worry about the derivation. That is what I insist once again. So the confidence interval level is given as 2 into number of instances multiplied by accuracy, and I have defined how to calculate accuracy. Z alpha by 2 and Z1 minus alpha by 2 values will be given to you. You know accuracy, you know the value of n. Substitute, you will get the probability for the given confidence interval level. How to find the values of Z alpha by 2, we'll see in the next slide. Now, say for example, I'll consider a model that has an accuracy of 80% when it has been evaluated on 100 test records. So please remember, not from the existing data set, from the new data set, that is my testing data set. New 100 instances are considered, and for that 100 instances a classification model has been built and the accuracy is calculated by your confusion matrix and it is found to be 80%. So for this model with 80% accuracy and n value equal to 100, what is the confidence interval for its true accuracy at 95% confidence level? So confidence level is 1 minus alpha, that means 1 minus alpha value is 95. At 95% confidence level, what is the confidence interval? If you look at this table, right, The following table shows the values of Z alpha by 2 at different confidence level. So 95% confidence level in the sense 0.95. At 0.95 confidence level, the confidence interval for a given model Z alpha by 2 is 1.96. This Z alpha by 2 value is supposed to be substituted in this equation to find the probability of the given event. We will solve a problem, you need not verify. So this table to you will be given in either your internals or the externals. You need not worry about remembering this table. So simple. What is the confidence for the given model with accuracy 80% and number of records n value equal to 100? You just say at 95% confidence level, the confidence interval value is 1.96. If I say 80%, the confidence interval level is 1.28. Similarly, the table has been given. So that is what I have described here. The confidence level of 95% corresponds to Z alpha by 2 equal to 1.96. The confidence interval for confidence level 95%, the confidence interval is 1.96. So similarly, this yields a confidence interval level between 71.1% to 86.7%. So what is that? We'll see the second table. Number of instances are 100. So n value is equal to 100. Then confidence interval, the accuracy will vary somewhere between 71.1% to 86.7%. That is what we have done here. Fine. 71 to 86%. So this is the table will be given to you based on the varying size of n. The confidence interval will vary. If you keenly observe, right, when you move from number of instances from 20 to 50, the gap between lower bound of accuracy and higher bound of accuracy will get decreased. See, 58 to 91, there is a difference of around 32 points. Here if you see, the difference is coming down to 21%. Here if you see, it is 15%. Again here it is hardly 7%. If you go to the number of records of 1000 records, the accuracy is varying only by 5%. If you move to 5000 records, the accuracy is varying by only 3%. So it's a simple indication. If the number of records are more, then only I can trust the accuracy of the given model, is what can be described by this confidence level 1 minus alpha and the confidence interval Z alpha. So in the next slide, we will see an example how to differentiate the performance of two models. Consider a pair of models. Again, instead of MA and MB, I am taking it as M1 and M2 that have been evaluated on two independent test sets D1 and D2. So instead of saying MA and MB, I am saying M1 and M2, and instead of saying number of records N1 and N2, I am saying D1 and D2. That means your data set. Let N1 denote the number of records in D1 and N2 denote the number of records for D2. Obviously, fine. N1 and N2 for D1 and D2 with respect to model 1 and model 2 respectively. In addition, we will define the error rate. What is error rate? It is the performance of the given classification model. In this example, I have taken accuracy to be 80%. What will be the error rate? 1 minus 80%. That means 20%, or 0.2 is the error rate. That is what I am saying here. Fine. In addition, suppose that the error rate for M1 on D1 is E1 and error rate for M2 is on D2 is E2. So error is nothing but the misclassification rate. If accuracy is 80%, error will be 100 minus 80. That means 20%. So what is our objective or the goal? Our objective is to test whether the observed difference between E1 and E2, that means the error rate between model 1 and model 2 is statistically significant or not. We are supposed to determine. How will we determine? We have certain formulas wherein the first thing I am supposed to do is I am supposed to find the difference between two models. Fine. I am supposed to find the difference between the two models error rate E1 subtracted by E2, the difference, and I denote the difference between the statistically significant models as D, where D indicates the observed difference. Please understand, I am using the notation D, which is termed as the observed difference between the error rates of two models, and DT is the true difference. So observed difference is between two models, DT is the true difference which will differentiate whether they are statistically significant or not, and D, the observed difference, is equal to almost congruently equal to number of instances multiplied by the variance and the true difference. Since D1 and D2 are independent, that is what I have said, two independent test sets with respect to D1 and D2 are considered. Their variance is given as variance is equal to model 1 variance plus model 2 variance. So if I expand the variance for each and every model, it is given as error rate 1 multiplied by 1 minus E1 divided by N1 plus E2 into 1 minus E2 divided by N2. Again I repeat, you need not worry about the derivation of the formula. Just remember, the variance of a given model is equal to this equation, E1 into 1 minus E1 divided by N1 plus E2 into 1 minus E2 divided by N2 at 1 minus alpha confidence level. So 1 minus alpha is your confidence level, Z alpha is your confidence interval. The true difference dt is equal to the observed difference plus or minus the upper bound or the lower bound of your confidence interval Z alpha. We have seen the table at 95% confidence level, the confidence interval is equal to 1.96 multiplied by the variance of the difference between the error rates of the models that you have computed. We'll see these formulas and we'll try to evaluate by solving an example. So we'll consider an illustrative example. Consider the problem described in the beginning of the section, wherein I have considered two models. Model A having 85% accuracy, model B having 75% accuracy. Model 1 has been tested on 30 records. I'll take the value of N1 as 30, and model 2 has been evaluated for 5000 records. That will be the value of N2, and the error rate for model 1 is 0.15 and for model 2 it is 0.25. What is the first thing I'm supposed to do? I'm supposed to find the observed difference. Observed difference is denoted by D, which is equal to E1 minus E2. So in this case, E1 minus E2 will be equal to 0.15 minus 0.25. D value is equal to 0.1. So I am talking about statistically significant, so I will not look at the magnitude value, just E1 minus E2 or E2 minus E1. The observed difference is 0.1. Fine. So model 1 and model 2, model 1 is having number of records 30, model 2 is having 5000 records. I represented by N1 and N2. Error rate for model 1 is 0.15, model 2 is 0.25. So observed difference E2 minus E1 is 0.25 minus 0.15, it is 0.1. Now I'll substitute these values into the variance equation. This equation I'll consider. Fine. Into this equation, E1 into 1 minus E1 divided by N1 plus E2 into 1 minus E2 divided by N2. I'll substitute these values as well as the value of the observed difference D, and I'll find that the variance is equal to 0.0043. If I take the square root of this, I'll get standard deviation. So at 95% confidence level as described above, fine, the Z alpha, the confidence interval is equal to 1.96. We'll go back to this table. Fine. At 95% confidence level, the Z alpha, the confidence interval is equal to 1.96. So I am taking the same value 1.96 and I substitute into this previous equation. At 1 minus alpha, the confidence level, the true difference is equal to observed difference plus or minus the confidence interval into the standard deviation. Square root of variance will give me standard deviation. So substitute those values into this equation. You will get a value of 0.100 plus or minus 0.128. So if I apply this lower bound and upper bound values, you will obviously find that the values will vary from negative range to positive range, which contains the value of 0 in its interval. Now please pay attention. Again I repeat, at 95% confidence level, the value of Z alpha by 2, that is your confidence interval, is 1.96. I substitute into the equation wherein the true difference is equal to observed difference. We have got right, 0.25 minus 0.15 is the observed difference plus or minus Z alpha into standard deviation. The square root of variance, if I take square root of your variance, I'll get the standard deviation. That is what I've written it here, square root of 0.0043, and if I substitute, I'll get a value of 0.1 plus or minus 0.128. If I find the upper and lower limits for this, the value of dt, that means the true difference will vary from minus 0.028 to 0.228. That means within this interval you will obviously find 0. If the interval between the lower bound and upper bound contains 0, then I can conclude that the difference may not be statistically significant. That means model 1 and model 2 are independent of each other. That is what I have written here. Please note this. As the interval spans the value of 0 from minus 0.028 to 0.228, a value 0 occurs. Obviously, we can conclude that the observed difference is not statistically significant. Both model A and B are independent of each other at 95% confidence level. So please make a note. If the lower limit and the upper limit of the true difference contains the interval 0, then I can conclude that the observed difference is not statistically significant with respect to the given confidence level of 95%. Now we'll see a small topic which is very much necessary for the next topic mentioned in your syllabus, that is your cross validation. We have already discussed what is validation when discussing the classification model. The data set used to verify whether the designed classification model is working correctly or not is called as validation. And now I am talking about cross validation. Now what is cross validation? When will I go for cross validation? We will discuss. In general, when I am designing a classification model, out of the n number of instances available in my data set, I will use 70% of the data set for training, 15% of the data set for validation, and remaining 15% for testing. And this splitting of the data set will hold good if the number of instances are greater than 30. I repeat, we will generally break our data set consisting of n number of instances into training, validation and testing, and split the data set into 70, 15% and 15% respectively if the number of instances are greater than 30. If the number of instances are less than or equal to 30, then we will go for cross validation. So please remember, now what will happen? If the data set size is greater than 30, then it is not an issue. If it is less than or equal to 30, I go for cross validation. And how exactly cross validation works? Now say for example, I said even this data set has to be split into 70, 15 and 15. If I do it, what will happen? 70% of 30 instances is 21. That means 21 records I will use for training, 5 records I will use for validation. 4.5 I am considering it as 5. Fine. So training I will use 21 records, validation I will use 5 records, testing I will use 4 records. Totally it will constitute to 30 instances. But unfortunately, what is the problem here? For validation I am using only 5 samples, and for testing I am using only 4 samples. As we have seen in model A and model B, model A has been evaluated for 30 instances, model B has been evaluated for 5000 instances. So in that case I will have less confidence on this. So how to overcome this problem? Now see here, I have made a list of all the 30 instances starting from D1, D2, D3 to 30. So all the 30 instances I am representing it as starting from D1 to D30. Now this is the initial step. Now what will I do? In the first instance I am supposed to split this training, validation and testing, right? So starting from record D1 to D21 I will select it for training, 22 to 26 I will use it for validation, 27 to 30 I will use it for testing. This is in the first iteration. In the second iteration, what will I do? In the next step, D2 to 22, that means from second record to 22nd record will be considered for training, 23 to 27 will be considered for validation. See the difference. I have excluded D1. I have started from D2 and I have moved to D22. Similarly for validation, I have excluded 22 and I have started with 23 to 27. Similarly, testing I started from 27 to 30 in the first instance. Now I am starting from 28, 29 to 30, and the D1 instance that was excluded from training will be considered for testing. Understand this? Fine. So in the next iteration, again what will I do? From third instance to 23 I will consider it for training. Again please recollect D1 and D2 is missing here. From 24 to 28 I will select it for validation, 29 to 30 plus D1 to D2 will be selected for testing. In the next iteration again, from 4 to 24 I'll take it for training, 25 to 27 I'll take it for validation, 30 1, 2 and third record will be used for testing. I'll repeat this. By this, what is happening? Every instance will be considered for training, every instance will be considered for validation, every instance will be considered for testing. I hope you understood, right? So if I just split into 70, 15 and 15 in a large data set, it will be sufficient. But if I split into 70, 15, 15 for a small data set of 30, I'll have only 5 instances for validation, 4 instances for testing. And if I employ this method, the cross validation, I'm crossing instances from one iteration to the other, hence I give the name cross validation. If I cross validate my data sets, now what will happen? Every instance starting from D1 to D30 will be used for training, it will be used for validation, it will be used for testing. Such process of splitting the data set for using it in all the 3 purposes of training, validation and testing is called as cross validation. Now in this slide we'll look at the process. So far we have considered comparing the models if the number of records is greater than 30. In this case it is 30, in the second case it is greater than 30. That means we have 5000 records. When the number of samples are less than or equal to 30, I'll employ cross validation. And how to compare models with the data set limited to 30 number of instances or less than 30, we have this process. It is exactly similar to your general process of comparing the algorithms. Here I'll just split the algorithm into k models. That means I'll partition into k number of models. I'll partition the data set into k partitions. So L1 may produce M11, M12, M1k. That means k number of partitions I do. Similarly for L2, I'll produce M21, M22 up to M2k. If the models are generated on the same data sets D1, D2 up to Dk, example via cross validation, and we have discussed cross validation here. So in that case, for each set, fine, this is one set, this is second set, this is third set. So for each set, find the observed difference. Observed difference is the error rate difference between two models 1 and 2. Same way, find the mean value, the true difference and the variance. How to find variance and true difference? We have the formula here. For all the partitions starting from 1 to k, that means if you have 30 instances and you are partitioning it into 30, so for all the 30 sets, find the variance. Square root of variance will give me standard deviation, and confidence interval and confidence level will be given to you. Substitute that, find the true difference. And if the true difference even for the partition data with cross validation contains 0 in its interval from lower bound to upper bound, then they are not statistically significant. This is how you can compare two classifier algorithms or two classifiers when the data set is less than or equal to number of instances 30. If it is greater than 30, whatever we have solved with this approach, fine, employ the same approach if the data set size is greater than 30. If it is less than 30, then apply cross validation. It is same as the previous approach, only thing for every set, here I have 1 set, 2 set, 3 sets, like this I'll do it for 30 sets. For all the 30 sets, find the observed difference dj and the variance, substitute in the true difference, wherein true difference is found by observed difference plus or minus the lower bound and upper bound for the given confidence interval level multiplied by standard deviation. Square root of your variance will give me standard deviation, and if the interval between lower bound and upper bound consists of the 0 value, that means it is ranging from negative values to positive values, then I can obviously conclude that the given two modules are not statistically significant to each other. So this concludes your decision tree evaluation as well as the model evaluation. When two models are given, when two classifier models are given with data set size greater than 30 and data set size lesser than 30, this is the process employed to evaluate the given classifier model. In your next sessions, we'll be discussing about the second part of your classification model. If you can recollect, in the very first slide of your decision tree, we'll be discussing about decision tree based classifier, rule based classifier, as well as Naive based and Bayesian belief networks. So with respect to the today's video and previous two videos, we have completed decision tree. In the upcoming videos, we'll be discussing about your rule based classifiers as well as Naive based and Bayesian belief network. Thank you.